Diese Show wird euch präsentiert von Newton Artworks. And don't forget, like, subscribe and hit the bell. And now, welcome to the show.
Hi Metalheads, willkommen zu Metals Forever, Show Nummer 743 am 12.03.2024 und normalerweise wäre heute Behind the Scenes und jetzt hat sie sich eingeloggt. Mitten in der Sendung, jetzt muss er fast ein bisschen warten. Also hat sich eingeloggt, ich hoffe, dass der Sound passt. Ich hatte keinen Soundcheck, aber ich würde sagen, wir fangen gleich an. Hier gibt es das Intro und dann auch gleich live im Interview Steve Rosen.
The Metalheads Forever Rockcast Show is proud to present Behind the Scenes with Steve Rosen.
Und da sind wir. Welcome to the show, Mr. Steve Rosen.
Richie, wie geht's?
Thank you. You give me a heart attack because I was waiting for you to sound check. But okay, you are here. That is the most important.
I apologize about that, Richie. I needed my cup of Java for our interview, so I needed a cup of coffee to get me ready here. So we're good to go, bud.
If maybe you do the camera a little bit down, so because
down?
you're a little bit down, yeah. Yes, you need to see a pretty face. More pretty than me.
I think that's as far down as I can get it. Is that better?
Okay, good.
Okay.
Steve, I am honored to talk to the master of interviews. This could be today my master class because I am overwhelmed to dive. I dived in your history. Holy cow!
Wow.
Excuse my French. This is unbelievable what I hear. And this will be a different show today. Normally I have a lot of music. And I decided, no, this is a interview today. This must be, I don't want to cut it in pieces. No, I want to know, I want to dive in your history. You know, our show always starts the same. I want to know how you became a metalhead, our guest, how they became metalheads or rockhead. In your case, you are not the young man like, not me, but others. I guess you grew up with the 50s, 60s sound. Is this right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not that old, Richie. I grew up with kind of, early mid 60s. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I was listening to the radio. I can remember having a little transistor radio back in the day, and remember listening to some of the local stations. We had a station called KRLA. This would have been in Culver City, California, and there was one called KHJ. And I can remember hearing songs by by the Kingsmen, Louie, and the Jolly Green Giant. And I remember the Seeds, Pushing Too Hard. And then the Beach Boys, you know, kind of 64, 65. I mean, Culver City was literally, I lived about 20 minutes from the ocean. Hermosa Beach, Redondo, where the Beach Boys, kind of grew up, was only just south of where I lived in Culver City. So that whole Beach Boys thing, and I don't know what it was, man. I was just captivated by it. I was captivated by, and maybe I didn't realize it at the time. Maybe I wasn't truly cognizant of it, but it was the sound of the guitars, and I can remember the sound of reverb, Wipeout, all those '60s instrumental surf bands, and Pipeline and the Ventures, just the sound of the reverb and the sound of the peck on the string. It was just something I don't know, man. It just got my imagination.
So you are a musician. You are a guitar player, because I see many pictures with the greats like Frank Zappa and it's unbelievable, man. How many the who is who in the metal and hard rock world. It's and we will hopefully talk about the stories, the crazy stories, and have the pictures. You and the guys, you look actually a little bit like Jimi Hendrix or now like Neil Schon when he was with Santana, when he has this Afro look, the hair. It's unbelievable. You change a lot.
Right. Somebody called me the Zelig of rock and roll. Zelig was a movie by Woody Allen, and Woody Allen, is a comedian over here, would sort of change his appearance every time he was, with somebody else. Anyway, I was the Zelig of rock and roll. But yeah. I mean, you can probably see some of the pictures behind me. Kind
of course,
always looking different. Kind of thing.
I prepared a lot of pictures, and I was just talking to my good buddy Hannes Rittel, and I showed him only the pictures I found on Facebook, and downloaded them, and it's like the who is who, and he said the Champions League. That's I mean, it's getting higher than this. As an interviewer, you did it all, unbelievable. So what was the first? You started guitar first. This was you playing guitar, but somehow we have to find a way how you end up in the guitar world, in the Guitar World magazine. So you started first playing?
I did. So I'm listening to records, and at a point in time, my dad was a musician, not a professional musician, but very gifted. He was a piano player, classical piano, and maybe it was being around my dad, watching him play. He was always listening to classical music, me listening to the radio. Somehow I thought, maybe I could learn the guitar. And I had some buddies who were a little ahead of me, and they were already playing guitar. And I can remember kind of seeing them or going to the garage, and watching them like jam with bands and stuff. And I thought, my God, that is just the greatest thing I've ever seen. I want to be able to do that. So I remember, I think the first guitar my parents rented for me, I think it was an acoustic guitar. And then I got it was a company called St. George. It was a 12-string guitar. Don't ask me why it was a 12-string, which I found impossibly difficult to play. And then somewhere early on, I got a Fender Mustang, which was unbelievable. And, man, I just was listening to records, and I was jamming with buddies, and they would learn a song. And I said, hey, man, what are the chords to that song? Can you show me, and I'd struggle trying to make an A chord, and then trying to get a bar chord, to ring true was like, building the pyramids, and it just grew from there. So I started listening to more guitar-centric records, and I'm trying to think what some of those early records were. So, I mean, look, man, I was starting to get into, early Jeff Beck, and I heard the first Jeff Beck record, Truth, with Rod Stewart, and that was, I could not believe that, And I was going to concerts by then. This is way before I was writing. I had a buddy who was a couple of years older, so he was able to drive. So I remember seeing, I saw, Jeff Beck with Rod Stewart at the Shrine Auditorium out here in Southern California. And I saw Cream, and I saw Hendrix twice, and I saw Blind Faith, and, I saw Blackmore, and I saw Free, and I was just astonished. Early on, I realized I was never going to be a guitar player like any of those guys. I mean, that was insane to even think I was. But I thought, maybe I could, be maybe like a songwriter in a band, and kind of just sort of be a good guitar player. And so that's kind of what I pursued. And I was in different bands with buddies and stuff, And I tried to. I wanted to be a guitar player in a rock and roll band. That's what I wanted to do. And then actually, it was probably in high school. So I'm a senior in high school. I'd been playing guitar for a while, and I was on the high school newspaper, the Culver City Centurion. And, high school newspapers are always about scholastic activities, and the volleyball team won their tournament, and a new teacher is coming to school, and I didn't want to write about that. So I told Mrs. Carpenter, the journalism teacher, I want to write about music. Give me a music column. She says, great, go do whatever you want to do. So I sent out letters, typed letters way before the internet, to all these club owners saying, look, I'm the music editor for the Culver City Centurion at Culver City High School, and there's 1,700 students here, and if they knew about the bands that are playing at your clubs, and maybe they'd come and, buy tickets. So they said, most of them said, yes, just, let us know when you want to come, or show us this letter and we'll let you in. So I was going to shows at the Whiskey. I went to shows at the Golden Bear, which was an amazing club sort of south of where I lived, down in Long Beach, about 50 miles south of Culver City. A club called the Ice House out in Pasadena. And as it turned out, the Ice House was literally 5 minutes away from Edward Van Halen, would ultimately come to live with his family. So I was doing reviews of these shows, I remember seeing Chicago really early at the Whiskey. I saw the Allman Brothers, Humble Pie. It was just amazing. And I was reviewing these shows, and it was the greatest thing in the world. So not only was I getting into these clubs for free, I was getting to write about them. And then the next day after the paper would come out, people would come up to me, all the cool kids, people who had never talked to me before, and they go, hey, we saw your little story on Spirit playing at the Golden Bear, and that's so cool. And I go, yeah, isn't that cool? I thought, my God, this is like a magic ticket, all these kids talking to me, and girls talking to me that didn't even know I was alive. I thought, there's something here, there's something here that maybe I want to.
You took the chance because I never saw I never talked to an interview guest who has so much experience in this. And I want to ask you a question, because I did now today show number 743 since January 2021. So I never prepare questions actually because I want to know. I will in a kind of chat get it out of the people, and I think because I listened to your interview with Alex Van Halen. It was 4.5 hours long. I mean, these guys, they are busy actually. So what is the recipe, or what is the secret to get somebody talking? Is it right that you maybe have some anchor point, and then comes, or what is it?
Well, that's a great question, Richie. I knew early on, I was always a good writer, and sometimes I was a very good writer, but I knew I wasn't the kind of writer who was doing, cover stories for Rolling Stone, or I wasn't that kind of a schooled writer. The only journalism I took really was in high school as a senior, the one class where I was on the newspaper. And then I went to UCLA, university, right out of high school. And I took some English classes, which were disastrous. I write about that in my book, Tone Chaser. I hated it. I thought, well, look, I'm going to go to UCLA, which was an amazing school. And I'm going to, I want to become a better writer. I want to learn more about journalism. And it was just a nightmare. I just hated it. I didn't understand it. The teachers didn't like me. They said, you have no talent. They said these things to me. Look, you have no talent. You'll never be a writer. So I thought, okay. So what is it that I thought, well, what is it that I could bring? And I thought, well, okay, I play guitar. I'm not a great guitar player, but I understand the mechanics of guitar playing. I understand theory. I took some music theory classes. I understand how chords go together, and I understand, how you build songs. How you go from a verse to a B section to a chorus. I mean, I was writing songs really early on. And because I was a journalist, I had a little bit of an ear for lyrics, you know, so I was writing lyrics early on. I had been in the studio a little bit, I'd done some recording, but that stuff baffled me. But I was always around guys who were experts at that stuff. So I watched, you know, and I tried to learn. So I thought I brought all of this this knowledge into this room. So I'm sitting there with Peter Frampton, and I'm in awe of Peter Frampton. You know, humble pie.
Let me jump in before you tell a story. How was it when you the very first time had a celebrity like a well-known world class guitar player or superstar? Was it intimidating for you? How was it for you? Was it like, oh my God, now I meet Peter Frampton? Or you said, okay, now, you know, he's a man, he's a human being. How was it? And then tell me a story from Peter Frampton. Because what I want to do today, I have some top 5 stories I hope I can get out of you from metalheads like Angus Young, Ozzy Osbourne, Iron Maiden, that stuff. But tell me how was it the first time you interviewed a big shot?
Right. Well, in answer to your question, Richie, no. I was a writer for literally 50 years. I wrote for just under 5 decades, and never when I was walking into a room or even doing a telephone interview, because later on, you rarely did in-person interviews. It was always on the phone. That notwithstanding, I never thought to myself, oh, I'm only talking to Elliot Easton, or it's only, it's only Rick Davis. I never thought that way. I always looked at these people as superhuman beings. You know, anybody who made music for a living, I thought was extraordinary. Some of them were more extraordinary than others to me because they were more the musicians I listened to. But in answer to your question, the very first interview I ever did, and I'll give you just 2 minutes of background. So after high school, I went to Europe and the UK with my buddy, Chris Kinderman, and we hitchhiked around. You know, it's kind of like a bohemian, you know, Jack Kerouac on the road kind of a thing. And I was meeting people. I had received some names of publicists and managers, and I went over there saying, hi, my name is Steve Rosen, and I'm a journalist from the United States, and you know, I was wondering if I could maybe interview some of your bands, thinking none of them are even going to take my phone call. They didn't know who I was. Virtually every single one of these people opened their doors to me, embraced me. So that being said, the very first interview I ever did was with Joe Cocker. I love Joe Cocker. I was a monster Grease Band fan. His performance at Woodstock was classic. So I'm walking into this room, and Joe Cocker is sitting behind the desk, and I'm telling you, I could barely speak. I was so, there you go. That wasn't the picture. This was taken much later. I ran into Joe. It was some party for somebody, and I remember saying to him, Joe, you were the first person I ever interviewed, you know. I doubt whether he remembered, of course. But he said, oh, great, you know, that's cool, you know. But yeah, Joe Cocker. So I'm sitting there, and it went beyond nerves. It was truly one of those, you know, it's like in a movie where you almost can't speak, and you forget how to breathe. And part of me was saying to myself, you cannot do this. What were you thinking? Just leave and, you know, give them your apologies later. But I thought, I can't do that. Because I had never planned to interview Joe Cocker, much less anybody else when I was there with my buddy Chris, I had no questions prepared. So I knew the day before, so I scribbled down a couple things, and I asked him about Woodstock, of course. He had done that amazing cover with a little help from my friends, with Jimmy Page. You know, so I asked him a couple of questions, and I was terrified. But he was completely open and friendly, and I didn't think that was because of anything that I had brought to it, but just that he was just genuinely a nice person. And real quickly, what did I do? A couple days later, I had another interview, and I recorded over his interview on the cassette. I thought, well, really, how long is my career going to be? I'm really not going to, I'm not going to be writing for another year. I'll just record over his cassette. So getting back to the question, bringing up Peter Frampton as an example. So yes, from Joe Cocker, I would go on to interview hundreds of huge, talented, creative musicians, guitar players, producers, singer-songwriters. And what is it that I brought to them? I think it was a fine line between sitting on the other side of this table as a journalist and a fan and someone who is just genuinely interested and incredibly awed by what they did. And you just kind of mix that all together. And I try not to be too formal, so you grew, and I've heard guys do that, I mean, really amazing writers. And it's this formal thing. And you just put somebody ill at ease from the get-go. So it was just a combination of knowing the person I was speaking to. And by that, I mean, having done my research, and if there was a new album, having listened to the record and trying to pull out the minutia, not, oh, that's your hit single and what a great single. But, if it was a guitar player going, wow, man, that little turnaround you did on your solo on that second track was so cool. And they instantly know, wow, this guy has really been listening. But beyond that, he understands, because maybe that part of that song was their favorite part too. I always look for that fulcrum point, that point where, the water drips into a glass and you're not sure, and then it overflows. You're not sure when it happens, but there's that moment when you go from interviewer and interviewee to two guys talking about guitars and rock and roll and touring. And I tell you, man, I did enough interviews. I could go back and listen to my interviews and kind of tell you when that moment happened. And once I reach that point, I go, now it's on. Now this guy knows. Now I can dig deep, and we can take turns. And so, yeah, it was just doing a lot of interviews, just really having so much admiration for these people, because I would have traded anything, right? Not that, again, I was never going to be Peter Frampton, but I just wanted to be in a band who was on the road making records. And you have to see these guys doing it on that level was just, something I never got over. Yeah.
Steve, what I do now, I play a little clip with only some illustrious guests you had. And this is in German voiceover. So for our German Fans, ihr da draußen, heute müsst ihr ein bisschen hart sein. Heute wird mehr eine Talkshow mit einem Gast. Sowas hat man, glaube ich, nur einmal. Der ist wirklich later on, I will tell how many hours you recorded. I have a little film, and after this we talk about some superstars I admire. Okay, here we go.
Yep.
Steve Rosen ist ein professioneller Musikjournalist, dessen Karriere sich über 50 Jahre erstreckt. In dieser Zeit hat er weit über 1000 Artikel in großen Zeitschriften aus der ganzen Welt veröffentlicht. Rosen war Mitte der 80er Jahre 4 Jahre lang Westküstenkorrespondent des Magazins Guitar World, für das er 8 Titelgeschichten schrieb, darunter 3 Leitartikel über Edward Van Halen, die als Schlüsselartikel über den legendären Gitarristen gelten. Als Mitarbeiter des Magazins Guitar Player schrieb Rosen innerhalb von 6 Jahren stolze 16 Titelgeschichten. Als anerkannte Autorität in der eklektischen Welt des Rock wurde Rosen 7-mal beauftragt, Bücher über verschiedene hochkarätige Musiker zu schreiben, darunter Jeff Beck, Prince, Bruce Springsteen, Black Sabbath, Free Bad Company und Randy Rhoads. Die Arbeit des reisenden Troubadours hat ihn auf der Suche nach geheimnisvollen Geschichten und schwer fassbaren Sagen in ferne Gefilde geführt. Er wurde ausgewählt, um zahlreiche Bands als reisender Bordschmied zu begleiten, darunter Led Zeppelin, The Who, Deep Purple, Aerosmith, Lenny Kravitz, Alice Cooper, The Firm und Van Halen.
Wow.
This was only a little bit what you have, and I have so many more. And I thought it's incredible. When I put it together today, I thought, holy cow! And nearly from everyone, I had the records. That's the amazing. Wow. So when you see, and there's a lot of missing, I tell you, like big shots.
Yeah.
What was? Do you mind? I choose some. I put some pictures in, and you tell me your memories of let's say. Wait a moment. The Prince of Darkness. Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy. Ozzy, I think is incredibly misunderstood. You know, he is one of the funniest people that you would ever want to meet. He is, you know, you think of him as the Prince of Darkness, and he's dark and, you know, moody. He's open and he's funny, man, and he's self-effacing. I first met Ozzy in '74. I flew to, this is a later picture, obviously much later. I flew to, I think it was St. Louis, where I was originally from. They were playing, I think it was Kiel Auditorium, a huge auditorium there. And I forget which magazine it was, but I was in the room with all four of them. And they were just the nicest, sweetest guys. Yeah, I mean, he was open and he was answering all my questions. Funny guy. I really love the guy. Amazing. I would go on to interview him 2 or 3 times down the road. And I believe, as you mentioned, Richie, I wrote a book on Black Sabbath called Wheels of Confusion. And Ozzy actually very generously wrote the little intro for me. And yeah, he's amazing.
This was in the early '80s. Was the Diary of the Madman tour, I guess.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
The promo. Yes,
exactly. I think that was maybe the like a little promo party. You can see the posters in the background.
Yes.
I think that's what that was. So yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, his career has been remarkable. I mean, you know, very few kind of metal guys can, you know, say they ever had a career like that.
If I look on the other side, I please forgive me, because I do everything alone, so I have to prepare for next pictures.
Gotcha.
And we are already with Black Sabbath, and unfortunately, some of the pictures you have a little note, and only the pictures. So I have to get it out of you. But one note you wrote for Mr. Tony Iommi. For me, he's the metal god when it comes to guitar, because and you wrote, one of the nicest person I ever met. And was it like this?
Tony? Oh, yeah, Tony was, again, you know, Tony's a pretty big guy, and you think, oh, these dark riffs, you know, and this and that. Yeah, he was fantastic. This is over at Warner Brothers Records. This is in Burbank. And the guy behind him, I believe this is Rhodey. I cannot remember his name for the life of me. But yeah, Tony was amazing. And in fact, when I was working on the book, I remember reaching out to him again. And he, you know, I think we did some long distance interviews. You know, they may have even have been done by fax. If anybody remembers faxes from back in the day. Yeah. Bill Ward was certainly very helpful. Bill and I emailed back and forth quite a bit, fax back and forth. But Tony was amazing. You know, yes, sweet guy. You know, when I heard that he had gotten sick, you know, that was horrible. But you know, thankfully he got over that. And yeah, man, I mean, you know, you talk about original guys who created a whole style, or guys who copied him. I mean, my God, I mean, how many guys copied Tony Iommi? I mean,
I want to put some. Our chat is active, of course, and Hannes Rittel, he writes, "Hello to the legend, Stephen Rosen."
Hans, how are you?
In Austria. He's in Austria.
Oh, nice. I have a relative in Austria. Actually, Vienna.
Okay, here we go. So, what was you? I mean, this is only some pictures. This is not all what you did. Go back to how you get up, or how you got the job to work for Guitar World. I mean, this is not a little magazine like you say. Oh, I write for the school. I can write something for Guitar World.
All right. So
the Guitar World was the golden ticket to the stars, of course, right?
It was, and to be honest, Richie, we have to go back just a little earlier than that to Guitar Player. So, up to 73, I've been writing for, I don't know, about a year or so. I did a couple of little things, the Los Angeles Free Press, a few things here and there. There was a company at the time called Gibson and Stromberg. They were literally the first rock and roll publicists. So they were handling, they handled the Stones for the Stones tour in 73. They handled Steely Dan, a band called Dr. Hook.
Of course.
Sutherland Brothers and Quiver, which is like this English band, actually a very good band. Jeff Beck. So they just sort of took me under their wing. They said, "Oh, there's this Steve Rosen. We like this guy. We're gonna help him." I mean, I don't think they specifically thought that way, but they just opened their arms to me, And so their offices were literally about 10 minutes from where I lived. I lived up in the Hollywood Hills, Laurel Canyon, and their offices were down on Sunset Boulevard, diagonally across from Tower Records. I mean, so Tower Records is there, their offices are across the street. So I was over there a lot. And basically, we had this unspoken arrangement. I would sort of interview all of their bands. In exchange, they would get me an interview with the bands I really wanted to interview. Because again, I was writing for the Free Press and some other kind of smaller publications, but they were happy just to get the press, So I'm up there one day and they said, "Oh, would you like to interview Jeff Beck?" And I just about swallowed my tongue. I said earlier, Jeff Beck, seeing those concerts back in the day was life-changing for me. Jeff Beck was and still is my favorite guitar player. I think he's the greatest guitar player who ever lived. So when they asked me, "Do you want to interview Jeff Beck?" I thought, yes, I'd love to interview Jeff Beck. So I'm in the room with Lydia Woltag. She was a publicist working at Gibson Stromberg. She picks up the phone, calls Guitar Player magazine, and is speaking to the editor, Jim Crockett. I knew this name because I had seen these issues of Guitar Player. I would have given anything to have written for Guitar Player at that time. I mean, I thought to myself, I want to write for Guitar Player magazine, She gets on the phone, she calls him, and I can kind of overhear what she's saying. "Yeah, we have a writer, and, we're going to set him up with Jeff Beck. Would you be interested in his story?" So she hangs up, and she tells me, she goes, "Listen, Jim will read your story when it's done, So if he likes it, he'll run it." Fast forward, I go and interview Jeff Beck, and again, it's that moment. I'm knocking on his hotel room door. He's staying at the Continental Hyatt House, which has been dubbed the Continental Riot House, because all the English bands coming from out of town, that was about the only hotel that would let them stay, because they had this reputation, all these English bands, for destroying hotel rooms. And indeed, it was a reputation well earned, because they did. But all these bands always paid their bills. So Jeff opens a door, the door opens, I think it's going to be somebody else. There's Jeff Beck standing in front of me, and I go, again, it's one of those Joe Cocker moments. We sit down, and it's an amazing interview. I send this story to Jim Crockett, a Guitar Player. He sends me back a letter, says, "The Jeff Beck story is perfect. We're putting it on the cover of our December 73 issue." I'll tell you, man, that for me was the golden ticket. From there, from December 77 until I think just about December 78, a total of, they came out monthly. So there was a total of 12, 10, 14, 15, 8 years. I think there was a total of 72 issues. I think it was 6 years. So 12 times 6. Out of 72 potential covers, I wrote 16 covers. So it's like one every, 3 or 4 covers was mine. And that's not to mention all of the major features I did. So that was an open door. That was a chance to interview Blackmore and Kossoff and John Entwistle and Joe Walsh and John McLaughlin. And a freelancer has a shelf life, and it's typically about 6 years. And after that, they find a whole new batch of freelancers, or something happens. I don't know. But for me, it was always a 6-year cycle. So I went from writing for a guitar player. A couple of years went by, and in '84, I started writing for Guitar World. I wrote for them for 5 years. That's where I did those 3 huge Van Halen covers, which people kind of look at and go, wow, those were pretty, cool covers. Those are important covers, So
I have a question here,
yeah.
Steve. Are you like to, I call you Steve or Steven?
Steve, please.
Steve, okay. One question to Steven. Me and lots of guitar players never understood why Guitar World never brought Chris Olivia Savatage on the cover or featured him more. Do you have an answer for this?
Hans, none of those decisions were made by me. I know the band Savatage, great band. I could never figure out how and why they would put certain people on the cover. Towards the end of my stay with Guitar World, things got really weird between me and the editorial staff and amongst editorial staff itself. I think they really went off course. They were putting people on the cover that I could not understand at all. I just didn't get it. I don't think it has anything to do with his abilities as a guitar player. It was politics. Maybe Savatage didn't sell a whole bunch of records over here. I don't know, man. I think there are lots of guitar players who should have been on the cover of Guitar World that never made it. But I wish I had a better answer for you, buddy.
I think we do a little bit more 70s, and this gentleman, of course, this photo is classic. Tell me about Frank Zappa and flip-flops. This is very, very metal-like.
I know. I cannot believe I wore flip-flops, and these shorts, you can see like threads. So these were regular pants that I had cut down. I mean, what was I thinking? I mean, I was like a fashion, a fashion nightmare. Flip-flops. I don't get it.
Yeah, you're not overdressed, my friend.
Exactly.
You look like the tennis teacher for Frank.
Exactly. But I did have very nice legs, though, right? You have to admit that. So
yeah, nice.
Right. So this is 77, I think, perhaps 78. I was interviewing Frank for the cover of Guitar World, and you can kind of recognize Frank from what he's wearing here to that same outfit on the cover of Guitar World that was shot by my very good friend Niels Lozauer.
Yes.
And Neil was also Van Halen
legendary
photographer.
He's the LA guy. He's the guy who does all in LA and at the Rainbow Bar and Grill stuff. This Neil was in the 80s, very much involved.
Right. So before this interview, I'd actually interviewed Frank a couple times, and to be honest, Frank was a little difficult to get along with. Very smart guy, but it was hard to get Frank to open up. When we sat for this Guitar World cover, I think like the other guitar players I interviewed for the cover, I think they knew that they were sitting there for the cover of Guitar. I'm sorry, not Guitar World, Guitar Player. They knew that they were sitting for a cover for Guitar Player. Guitar Player during its heyday was, I mean, it was the Bible. I mean, if you were a guitar player, you wanted to be in Guitar Player. If you know, to be on the cover, I mean, that was pretty rare. So I don't know, Frank's interview that I did with him for Guitar Player cover, he was very cool. We talked about a lot of great stuff, you know, playing with Clapton and some stuff I always wanted to know about. But Frank was a little difficult. But, you know, he loosened up here, and he is playing, you know, Frank owned and still owns, Dweezil owns it, the guitar that Jimi Hendrix burned at the Miami Pop Festival. Not the Monterey Pop Festival, the Miami Pop Festival. And he redid the neck, because I think the neck was totally destroyed, and the body was pretty burned, and I think he put in a new pick and stuff, but that's Jimmy's guitar. And you can see here that Frank signed it, because again, I interviewed him earlier, and somehow brought that picture to this interview. I'm not sure of the chronology, but yeah, but Frank, you know, an icon. Real quick story. You want another quick story, or you want to move on?
We have so many to cover. I think we make it shorter. Give me the crazy stories if possible, because I want to feature so many as possible.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's stay with the 70s, and alone the look of him is like a criminal. He's like iconic, and he's actually one of the guys who said in a hotel which they destroyed. This is one of the first one who did this stuff to destroy hotel rooms. The Who.
Absolutely, Keith Moon, man. Those famous stories of throwing televisions and sofas out the windows, man. All true, all true. I think the Who were maybe the greatest live band of all times. I don't think there was a band greater than the Who when they were on. There was nobody greater. I think he's one of the greatest guitar players, songwriters. I mean, they were just an amazing band. This picture was taken, can't remember the year. I interviewed Pete in 78 or 79 when The Kids Are All Right, the film and the album came out. I flew to New York to interview him. And I'll tell you, man, walking into a room with Pete Townsend, that was, oh my God, you know, because I'd heard things about Pete. He was a very erudite guy, and he was bright, and you know, I thought, you know, the questions I was going to ask, he's going to say, oh, you know, talk about something else. I mean, I was really terrified. So, you know, the entire flight from LA to New York, you know, it's a 6-hour flight, you know, I'm going over my questions and thinking, oh, he's not going to like that, this and that, you know, so I had all this time to think about it. I remember it was pouring rain that day, and where he was staying, I was actually staying at a buddy's house. He had like a couch or something. And so I was staying at his house, and where Pete was staying was close enough to walk, and it was pouring rain. I remember we passed this little shop, and they had umbrellas. I remember buying an umbrella, and I still have that umbrella. And to this day, that's my Pete Townsend umbrella, you know? I mean, it was New York, but it was warm out, you know what I mean? It was like one of those warm rains. And, you know, so I'm in the rain with this umbrella, you know, in New York, going to interview Pete Townsend. I mean, you know, you talk about these moments in life when you think, how does it get any better than that? Anyway, so we go into the room, and he was amazing. I mean, we talked, honestly, I think we talked for over an hour. And, you know, we talked about everything, and, you know, Who's Next, which is my favorite Who record. And
yeah,
he was just unbelievable. He was just, you know, that was one of my favorite interviews I ever did.
Wow, good. It was a good pick. So now we go out of rock. Now we go to pop, and you interviewed the king of pop. And this will be interesting how this happens, because he's a guitar player. I think I never saw him playing guitar. So what is the story with Michael Jackson?
Yeah, Michael Jackson. No, he wasn't. You know, it's funny. I don't know if Michael played any instrument. obviously he was a very prolific songwriter. He surrounded himself with great songwriters, but I think, yeah, those ideas were just his, and he came up and he would start singing melodies. So this was taken at CBS Records in Century City, California, which is basically like a little area, a lot of high-rise buildings, a lot of lawyers, very upscale area, which isn't surprising. So I think somebody said, oh, do you want to interview, I don't know if they said, do you want to interview Michael Jackson or do you want to interview the Jacksons? Either way, I said yes. Now, I loved what the Jacksons did. Were they my favorite band? No, just because it's not the kind of music I listen to. But I realized, what a high level of craftsmanship and the production and the vocals, and everything else. So yeah, I absolutely wanted to interview them, whether it would have been Michael or Tito or, whoever would have been there. So we walk in and they're set up. It's like it's not even a conference room. It's like a big, it almost looks like a rehearsal room, but it's just like a big room. And they put like this table, a couple tables in there. And so various members of the Jacksons are there. This was, I think, around Dynasty. And again, I'm not good with my years.
The look, I thought it was my Thriller time because he looks not a natural.
It
look.
could have been Thriller. I don't know if Thriller was out or it was coming out. But Michael was still touring with the Jacksons at that point. He was still working with his brothers. So I'm not quite sure.
Then was the Thriller time because he did this as a side project and nobody knew that it becomes the most sold records of all time.
Yeah.
This
so there you go.
And you see how he was a little bit extravaganza from the clothes. And after this, I'm not a Michael Jackson fan, but I follow his career, of course. And I'm pretty sure this was the Thriller time.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, Richie. So they had different Jackson people, members sitting with different writers, one table, and then I was at a table. And so I sit down, and Michael sits across from me. I thought, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And I'll be real quick with this story. So I had some questions, no, you're right. So I said, yeah, Michael, what was it? It must be different working with your brothers in the Jacksons as opposed to a solo career. So yes, his solo record must have been out. And there's a girl sitting, a young girl sitting next to him. And I didn't know till later that it was Janet. I mean, she was like, I don't know, she was like 16 or 7. Instead of saying, instead of looking at me saying, oh, I love working with my brothers, but it is different. He turns to this girl. And I didn't know that it was Janet at the time. I only found out later. And he goes, and he's saying, oh, well, I love working with my brothers, but it's different because I can do more of what I want on my own. I'm just paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what it was. He then turns around and she turns to me and she sort of says to me, yes, Michael loves to work with his brothers, but it's different when he's on his own because he has more control. And I thought, well, he's just goofing around. He's just having fun, like, because he's not like answering me directly. And then I asked him another question, and he does the same thing. He talks to this, this little girl, and then she says it to me. And I thought, well, maybe he's just goofing with the white guy. I didn't know. It was harmless, but it was weird. Then at a point in time, he started talking to me directly. The whole interview only lasted about 13 or 14 minutes. But he was very nice, incredibly open. What was the most amazing, after we were done, he walked off into a corner, and he just started dancing. I mean, just going through some moves. And I'm telling you, man, this guy's feet did not touch the ground. I mean, he was magic. And he wasn't doing it like to say, oh, look at me. That's just who he was. For him to be dancing in a corner, that's just what he would do. So it was pretty amazing. I mean, I'm so happy that I had the chance to meet him, You
have an incredible memory, my friend. Unbelievable.
Well,
I put a picture on, and we have so many, I want to ask you. And of course, one of the when it comes now to end of 70s, early 80s, before we talk about the maestro Eddie Van Halen, this will be our highlight today, because then we comes to the book. Another one who really, you tell me, was a game changer or not? But I think when Randy Rhoads came to the scene, it was like, wow, what's happened here? So Ozzy had a great pick, and this picture is amazing. You and Randy Rhoads.
Right. Richie, this is actually, it looks exactly like Randy Rhoads. This is actually Mick Ronson.
Oh. Okay.
So it's no big deal. You are not the first person. He looks exactly like Randy Rhoads. I can give you a Randy Rhoads story very quickly.
Okay. Get off the picture. This is not Randy Rhoads.
Yeah, man.
Unbelievable. Okay. He is the spitting image of Randy Rhoads. Yeah,
he is, absolutely. I never met Randy. I did see Randy play with Quiet Riot a couple times at the Starwood. And to be honest with you, I never thought that he was that great. You know, Randy was playing a Les Paul back then, and he was good. He was a good guitar player, but there were a lot of other guitar players around at the time. Fast forward many years, somebody approaches me, and they had sort of put together sort of a framework of a book about Randy Rhoads, and they asked me if I would complete the book, basically put it together. And I said, well, look, man, I've never interviewed Randy. I've interviewed a lot of people he's played with, Ozzy Osbourne and a lot of other musicians. I said, but I haven't interviewed Randy. I don't really like writing books about people that I've never met. I just don't like doing it. They said, well, come on, you can do it. Anyway, I did write a book about Randy called Randy Rhoads. That was put together basically, again, there was like not a template, but the manuscript had sort of been written. I just kind of, twisted and turned it into a book. It was a very cool book. Andrew Klein was sort of the co-writer. The Rhoads family, when it was done, got very nasty. They sued Andrew, even though he had gotten clearances and he was the nicest guy. He loved Randy Rhoads. This book is like an oversized coffee table, amazing photos. And the book never really saw the light of day. You can actually find a couple copies now on Amazon for like $1,500 each. But I'm sorry I never had the chance to meet Randy. He was obviously a very important guitar player back in the day, for sure. Especially
for Ozzy, maybe he saved his life. He gave him a little bit, because after we know the story from Ozzy, after Black Sabbath, after they kicked him out, or he left, I don't know what really was true, but he was in a bad shape, and Randy gave him a new life, actually. But absolutely. So I would say we are called Metalheads Forever Rockcast Show, and now we have to enter the world of metal. Gotcha. When it comes to metal, the new wave of British heavy metal, that was the wave. This was like everybody was wow. And Iron Maiden is still, they are the kings, actually. They're still So we have Dave Murray and Adrian Smith.
Tell me a story about them. Yeah, so again, I'm bad with years. Maybe you guys recognize better what year that would be. I'm thinking early 80s.
Number of the Peace times, Peace of Mind times, I guess.
Yeah, could be.
Ihr da draußen, ihr seid vielleicht Maiden-Fans. Welches Jahr könnte das sein?
I'm sorry, Richie, say that again, please.
No, I talk in German.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To the viewers. Maybe they have some ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Maiden fans.
Right. So, so Iron Maiden, I mean, who doesn't know Iron Maiden? They were headlining, I believe it was Long Beach Arena, a huge place. And, so I sat down with Adrian and Dave. These guys, I mean, you can see these guys are just the sweetest guys and just English gentlemen. I mean, they were so cool. And what is interesting about this photo, and this photo was taken by a photographer named Glenn LaFurman. So where am I pointing? Oh, you can't see it here. So anyway, so Dave, you can see he's holding the Strat. Looks black. It's actually dark brown. That's my guitar. For some reason, they didn't have their guitars there. And so I think that I had brought my guitars, and I maybe had the photographer bring a guitar in case they didn't have guitars, because the photos were supposed to be with guitars. And it's not the only time it happened. You know, we go somewhere and it's supposed to be a cover or a shoot with the guitar player with the guitars, and they don't have the guitar. So the guitar in the middle, I think that's a Kramer. That belonged to the photographer, and then you can only see a little bit of the Les Paul that Adrian has, and that's black. That's a black deluxe. That's also my guitar. But these guys are great. They were amazing. You know, their career. My God, you know, it's just. Yeah,
I bring you now two gentlemen, two icons, next to next, and you tell me who is more nicer one. But because by one, I know he's maybe difficult. But by one, I know he's very generous to the fans. I don't know how is it to an interviewer. I saw some, and I'm talking about Ronnie James Dio. Of course, he's one of the best singers ever. This picture is amazing. It's, and you have the little microphone. So
exactly.
Tell me about Ronnie. Was he so nice and kind, like everybody says?
He was the nicest guy there ever was. And I'm going to say something here. After Ronnie passed away, a lot of people who maybe never recognized Ronnie previously, all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork and, oh, Ronnie was the greatest singer, and oh, Ronnie was this and that. You know, that really bothers me. I just wanted to get that out of the way. You can see what Ronnie had written there. I had interviewed Ronnie previous. This is 75. This is Ronnie James Dio for the first Rainbow record. This is in Oxnard, California, which is about, Oxnard, I think is about 60 or 70 miles, I think like north of LA. Richie Blackmore was renting a house or leasing a house in Oxnard. So I was there to interview Richie, one of the first interviews he ever did for the new Rainbow project, the first Rainbow record. And Ronnie was there. So I had just interviewed Richie, and I probably said, Ronnie, can we talk? He goes, yeah, sure, man. He was just unbelievable. Really honest guy. And, you know, it's not like he was saying, oh my God, I'm so lucky to be in Rainbow and this and that. You know, he wasn't like that, you know. I mean, he recognized who he was. It wasn't an ego thing. It was just, hey, I'm a good singer, and yeah, you know, Richie and I are going to do some great things. And that first Rainbow record was great, for sure.
I think when Blackmore, when Elf, it was the band before Rainbow, when Elf opened for Deep Purple on a tour, on the European tour, or maybe in the States, I don't know. Blackmore heard the pipes of Ronnie. For me, when I heard the very first time Rising, this was for me like another level of singing. You know, this was like, wow, this is still one of the best albums ever, is Rainbow Rising with its vocals. And still I love every record Ronnie did. Ronnie he has some specialty, because he's like, I always compare a little bit Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley has this very, very soft tone, or this powerful tone, this rough tone. So, and this is what Ronnie has, like Rainbow Eyes, this beautiful ballad. You know, it's unbelievable how Ronnie could sing. Not only metal, yet has a very, very lovely, soft voice. And I heard this. I heard this many times. Okay, I bring you the next gentleman, and you mentioned it before.
Okay, Richie, I'm sorry, Richie. I just want to comment. You see that Ronnie had signed that, and it said something. If you're still looking for a singer, give me a call. I had talked to Ronnie. I probably told him I was in bands or had a band and was looking for a singer, and that's why he wrote that, which I thought was very sweet for him to do that. You know, give him a call if you need a singer, right? So, pretty nice.
Now, tell me how Richie Blackmore, because he has many tells me Richie Blackmore is very, very difficult. It looks like you have a good time with him.
Yeah. So again, this is 78. This is for the cover of Guitar Player. And again, like Frank Zappa, I had interviewed Richie a couple times previously, and he was not very nice. He was sarcastic. You know, he was kind of, he was insulting. You know,
to you or to his entourage?
No, to me. You know, as it turned out, I guess the band, you know, found it difficult to work with him as well. You know, and ultimately, you know, he leaves the band or gets kicked out, whatever that is. All that notwithstanding, I think he's
Tony Carey. Tony Carey was not very happy with him because they treated him very, very badly. Yeah.
You know, whether he's a nice guy or not, he wrote some of the greatest, you know, metal riffs ever written. His playing was so unique, amazing. And that guitar he's holding, that's another one of my guitars. That's my 73 Maple Strat. But for this interview, again, because it was a cover for Guitar Player, he was on his best behavior, and it was actually a very good interview. I write about introducing Edward Van Halen to Ritchie Blackmore in my book, and that's a whole nother story, man.
So we enter the Hollywood glam metal world with Theater of Pain, and you know what's happened with Theater of Pain, and it breaks my heart what's happening right now, what's happening with Motley Crue. You know, even John Five is a great guitar player, but for me was Mick Mars the backbone of the band, and how this ended it's very, very cruel, and I hate it as a long life fan of Motley Crue. And I love this picture you have. This is one of the best pictures, Mick Mars and Steve Rosen. So this was the Theater of Pain tour, of course, you can see.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a cool picture. Again, this photo was taken by Glenn LaFurman in Glenn's studio in Culver City. And I think this happened. I think he said that he was shooting Mick Mars, and do you want to come down? And I said, yeah, man, of course. So, yes, I went down and talked to Mick, and he was very cool, man. Very nice guy. Amazing guitar. Big Van Halen guy, too. Fantastic. Yeah, man, you know, you hear about what goes on between bands, and, you know, you think about one of the biggest bands in the world, and you think about all the freaking money they made. And at the end of the day, they can't get along because one guy says, you owe me money, or we owe you money. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. It's
very sad.
They made for me, a huge mistake. They should stay out of the business. They're in 2015. We never come back. We sign a contract, and that's it. And then coming back, because I always say, money talk, bullshit walks. Yeah. And yeah, Mick Mars, thank you for the story. Let's see. I have so many. Of course, we have to kind of magic. Sir, you also interviewed sirs. Oh, where is it now? Here we go. Still alive and kicking, Mr. Brian May. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah. Again, this photo was taken by Glenn LaFurman. Can't remember where this is. A hotel somewhere. He is.
Maybe you do research when you have a mustache and not, because here don't have it.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I could probably go back and trace it through.
Then it's not about Brian May. I think I follow Queen all my life, of course. Yeah. I'm since the 70s, since she had her Attack and We Will Rock You, when it came out and stuff, I was already hooked on this stuff, you know. No, that's not true. I discovered later on, after 78. But of course, Queen was one of the first ones. And I think he's a very humble, friendly, nice guy. I'm right?
Absolutely. You know, plus we all know he's a rocket scientist too, right? PhD in something. And you know, I have so many stories I could tell you. I'll tell you a real quick one. So I told you, out of high school, I went to I backpacked around Europe and the UK with my buddy Chris Kinderman. And literally, we were sleeping in Hyde Park. We'd sleep, on the beaches. I met Tony Brainsby. Tony Brainsby was a publicist who at the time actually was handling Paul McCartney. I actually interviewed Paul McCartney on that first trip to England when I was a nobody. That's a whole different story. So I'm at Tony's one day because I had interviewed some of his bands. Again, he opened his client list to me and said, "Hey, I've got these people coming. You want to interview them?" So one day he says to me, he goes, "Listen, I have this new band called Queen. Their first record is coming out. I have a white test pressing. All 4 members are going to be here tomorrow. Do you want to interview them?" So I'm thinking, Queen, that's a little too glam. I wasn't a big glam guy. I thought it was going to be like a glam Platform heels or something. And I go, "No, Tony, thanks. I'm going to pass on that." Well, that literally would have been, if not the first, one of the very first interviews all 4 guys would have done. I can shoot myself for that one. Fast forward, I interviewed Brian a couple times. I did a story on him, and maybe this is what that picture was. In Guitar Player, sweet guy, bright. He had his guitar there. His guitar, he uses 8s, so he's got an 8 on the high E string. It's like a banjo string. It's so thin that just by laying your hand on the guitar in a chord, it goes out of tune, or at least it went out of tune for me. But you hear how he gets all that finesse and all that articulation. Another one of the great, unique guitar players of all time.
Absolutely.
Big Van Halen fan. Edward loved him. They did a project together, which I write about in the book. And one of the only guitar players other than Les Paul that I can think of, and Edward, who not only built his own guitar, but played his guitars. And if anybody else can think of a guitar player who built his own guitar and played them, please let me know, because I can't think of anybody.
I just looking for the next one. Yeah, that's now we're talking. And look at now you look like a to the beast on the guitar, like a tennis teacher. And I'm talking about Angus Young.
Oh yeah, Angus again. Angus. Photo taken by Glenn LaFerman. This is for the cover of Guitar World, and he was great. His accent was a little thick, a little hard to understand them sometimes. That
Australian,
right down under. Why, mate? You know, and but very cool guy, and you can see he was also. It's hard to see in his right hand there. He's got a cigarette smoked
always
profusely.
Cup of tea and cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm about 5'6". You know, if I'm standing on a hill and the wind is blowing in the right direction, so you can see that Angus is like 2 inches shorter than me. He's like one of 2 people I've ever interviewed who were shorter than me: Angus Young and Paul Kossoff. I feel like I'm a basketball player. You know, I feel like I'm huge. And again, I got my shorts on. At least these shorts are real shorts there. You know, I don't know why I always did that. I really don't. But
yeah, because you're proud of your legs. That's his.
You know,
Angus Young. Yes, what a legend. And this guy still alive. We have so many. Let me see. This is like who is who. Let's talk about a complete different genre. And I guess, hopefully, I'm not wrong about this one. You tell me who is this, and I WB.
So you think you know who it is?
B.B. King.
There you go. B.B.
Tell me about a story about B.B. King.
Yeah. Oh my God, this was amazing. I think this was done I interviewed B.B. a couple times. Yeah. So this is done. I think this is also at the Hyatt House, and you see B.B. is wearing like his. It's like a big Japanese robe. You know what?
Kimono. Yeah.
Sweet guy. You know. B.B. was successful. One, obviously, he was a remarkable guitar player, but B.B. understood the business, and he understood being a black man in this business, and he understood all of those things, which is why his career, went on and on and lasted so long, and he was so successful. But we talked, and I was asking him all kinds of things. He opening for the Stones, and God, just a sweet guy. I mean, you can see he's just a sweet guy. Fast forward, maybe it was a week later, maybe a couple days later, he's playing in Las Vegas. He's playing one of the big showrooms there. I was there as a guest. The label flew me out to see his show, and so I'm sitting there, in one of the booths, and it's kind of like a VIP booth, and they had served me drinks, and I think they served me dinner, and so the lights come down, and the BB comes out and says hello, and he says, "Oh yes, and I want to, point out some special people in the audience, and he points out some people I don't know. He says, "Oh yes, and we have Steve Rosen, a famous journalist, sitting there." Do you realize what it took for him, one, to remember my name, two, to take a time out in his show to recognize me? It tells you who he was and how he understood the business. You know what I mean? I mean, I heard that, and it's like, oh my, I can't believe, so I stand up, and you kind of look around, you kind of bow like people do. It was just such a remarkable thing for him to do that. He just understood how the wheels turned, and not that he was thinking that way, but, maybe we'd gotten along, and he wanted to recognize me as a writer, and then, I was going to write nice things about him, which I would have done anyway, because he was an amazing guy. But, I just thought that was so
great story. Right? What an honor.
Absolutely.
We stay with the blues, but to be honest, I am more in the rock when it comes to,
I get it.
And still got the blues. We talk about Mr. Gary Moore.
Gary, I believe
was this the Wild Frontier times, or what was this? I can't say.
When was this? Are you asking?
I'm at the Wild Frontier album time, or was it already in the blues time?
What? I don't know,
think
man.
This must be in the 80s. This must be.
Ja, definitely 80s.
Jeder draußen Gary Moore Fans. Wann war das gewesen? Was denkt ihr? War es Victim of the Future? War es Wild Frontier?
Yeah, one of his solo records. I love Gary Moore. I think he was really an undersung guitar player. I don't think he ever nearly got the credit he deserved. Very nice guy. I'd heard stories, he has like a little scar on his face, and he's in a knife fight, and he was a tough guy. I mean, he was just unbelievable. Some of those records he made, my God, the sound of his guitar, Les Paul guy, fantastic, amazing guy.
Who is this guitar? Maybe you talk about this Les Paul. Kirk Hammett. Kirk Hammett bought the guitar.
Oh, he bought one of Gary's guitars?
Yes.
Yeah.
The guitar with the broken neck, and they fixed it, but it still sounds better than ever now. This is Kirk Hammett.
Yeah, I bet.
Gary Moore, what a legend. But I must say, of course, the Still Got the Blues, great album, but I loved The Victim of the Future time. This was for me, Gary Moore. I loved him. This album is a milestone, a killer. Still today, I love it. So let's see, we have a lot to cover. If you have still time, I have to thank you for the stories. You're a born storyteller. Let's see, there are so many. What about Kiss? What about Mr. Ace Frehley? Yeah, this must be not long ago, actually. I was a little bit small, because this is now with gray hair, gray beard.
Yeah.
Ace Frehley.
Ace was 4 or 5 years ago. One of his solo records, and he had Slash. That's when he had different guitar players come and I think play solos. So this is one of those records he did. This is for a cover for Guitar World. He and Slash were on the cover. I don't know. I want to say 2024. I don't know. 2015, 2016, 2017.
Okay.
Something like that, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. So bad with remembering that stuff. But he was great. So let me back up just a little bit. So back in, I believe it's 70, 77, 78, when Kiss first sort of
Here we
took
go.
the
I can zoom it. That is cool. Look at this.
Cool. Yeah. This is done at the photography studio. So back, I think it's 78. Guitar player wants an interview with Ace and Gene and Paul. So so I sit, and it was a phoner I did with Ace, and he was very cool. To be honest, and I hate to admit this because I'm embarrassed, I wasn't as prepared for that interview as I should have been. I told you earlier, I was always, I had it all together. I didn't have it together for Ace. But he was very cool, very accommodating. I did interviews with Paul and Gene in person. So I think it was on the same day. So I'm there at their management offices, and I'm waiting out in the lobby. I see these guys walk by, and I've been waiting for a while. I'm thinking, well, when the hell are these guys going to show up? And it was Gene and Paul. I mean, I didn't recognize them.
Because so this was the time they had the masks, right?
Yeah, this is when they didn't. This is like the first time when they didn't have any.
Maybe it was one of the first you saw them without makeup.
Exactly. So they were both very cool, very nice guys, And so what Gene wanted when he found out that Ace was going to be on the cover, Gene wanted 3 separate covers. He wanted a cover with him, a cover with Paul, and a cover with Ace. And so I said, hey, Gene, it has nothing to do with me. I'll ask guitar player. And I asked guitar player, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. We've never done that. So it was Ace on the cover, and then Paul and Gene were the major features. But they were both very cool. I must admit, I subsequently interviewed Gene later on, and he wasn't very nice. He wasn't so nice, at least to me. But
because he wasn't on the cover.
Yeah, there you go. But Kiss. I mean, who can argue with that success? I mean, it was pretty unbelievable.
For me, the 80s was such a cool time, because not only the singers changed, also the guitar players changed. I not talk about Eddie now, because Eddie will be our highlight today, but you had also a lot of great guitar players like Steve Vai. And I must say, I got in touch with Steve Vai when he was with David Lee Roth. And here's a great picture, you and Steve Vai. Look at this.
Yeah.
This was nice. Before he had his signature guitar, right?
I think so. In fact, I think a bunch of those guitars got stolen. I don't know if he ever got them back. This photo is by Niels Lozauer, my buddy Neil, who shot the covers of my 3 editions of my book. So, yeah, I mean, you know what? This is a perfect look at Steve's hand. That's his right hand, right on the neck there, and then there's mine above it.
It's like a Spider-Man.
I mean, his fingers are like, his small finger is as long as my first finger. I mean, and Edward Van Halen, my God, it's not just a coincidence that these guys can play that kind of stuff. I mean, their hands are built like that. It just, I have these fat, stumpy fingers, and his look like tree limbs, Steve has been amazing to me. I interviewed Steve the first time back in Alcatraz. I actually loaned him my Marshall top for the first Alcatraz record. I interviewed him many times over the years. Steve recently wrote a blurb for the back of my book, the 3rd edition. He's amazing. The guy, I mean, he is unique in all this world. Yeah, there aren't many players like Steve, for sure.
Yeah. Well, of course, Alcatraz, you mentioned, of course, you had also the honor, maybe because I don't like this guy, because I met him and he was not friendly. This was a guy I can tell he's not friendly, was Yngwie Malmsteen. This was a strange guy, I must say. I was backstage with him and I didn't like it. But maybe I'm wrong. What about when we talk about Kiss, about this crazy guy, which is now, and he actually is in the guitar world. Let me see. This was when he still looked good. Vinnie Vincent.
Vinnie, this is at the NAMM show. The NAMM show is the big show where all the guitar makers and drum makers and amp makers come together for a convention in Anaheim near Disneyland. And, all the people who have the retail stores across the country come and, I'm going to, order 10 new Fender guitars and these drums, blah, blah, blah. So Vinnie was there. And, Vinnie is an unbelievable guitar player. I don't think he ever got, the recognition he deserved. He's also an unbelievable songwriter and a singer. This guy is very talented. I know that Vinnie has had, some things said about him. I've always gotten along with Vinnie. He's always treated me amazingly well. Just a great guitar player.
Well, maybe sometimes I have to say was a good player, because I saw him when he came back. Not long ago, maybe 2 years ago, and he couldn't play even Lick It Up. He played only the rhythm, no lead, no solos, and the critic was not good. And of course, he looks a little bit strange now. Looks like a woman. I don't know, but this is his personal stuff. But what I don't like is this when somebody is not professional. If you book a show and you not show up, or you're overcharging fans, and he has not the best let's say, how it say it in English, in German, roof. Anyway, he was great in the 80s, without doubt, and his Vinnie Vincent's his solo band, great. But now maybe time is over. I think it's time to enter the world of Eddie Van Halen. How you met Eddie, because you mentioned right in the beginning Pasadena. This is the city where David Lee Roth lived and Eddie Van Halen, right? So how you met Eddie before they released the first album, right?
That's correct.
Tell the story of Eddie Van Halen.
So it's June or July of '77, and Cheap Trick is recording a live record at the Whiskey. I was a big Cheap Trick fan. So is Edward. And I thought, hey, that's worth seeing. I'm going to go check out the Cheap Trick recording a live record at the Whiskey. So I was there that night with my brother Mick, and we're standing downstairs waiting for Cheap Trick to come on, and there's a tap on my shoulder, and it's Michelle Meyer. Michelle was the girl who booked the Whiskey. She also booked a couple other clubs in town, Madame Wong's East and Madame Wong's West. Madame Wong's East was a pretty hip punk club at the time. If you were in a punk band, you wanted to play Madame Wong's East. I was in a band at the time, and without ever hearing the band, Michelle booked our band. I think we were called Deluge at the time, like a rainfall deluge, into both clubs. And for that, I was forever grateful. And so Michelle taps him on the shoulder and she says, hey, there's somebody upstairs I want you to meet. And I thought, if Michelle wants me to meet somebody, I'm there. Because Michelle knew every single person in Hollywood. She knew what was good, what was bad. And if she wanted me to meet somebody, this had to be somebody pretty special. So we walk up the stairs to the Whiskey dressing rooms, and they're like the inside of a garbage truck, the floor has this horrible carpeting, and there's cigarette butts and empty beer, plastic cups and, I mean, it smelled like an ashtray, but it was rock and roll, right? This is the whiskey in 77, the heart of the Sunset Strip is happening, So we walk in, and I see this guy standing sort of in the corner smoking a cigarette. And you have to understand, so this is 77. We're still 8 months away before the first record comes out. Van Halen had been playing the whiskey and the Starwood, but it's not like there were magazine articles. There was really nothing written about them at the time. I think I had probably recognized who he was, maybe by some of the flyers, but honestly, that memory is hard. It's hard to know. So we walk over, and she says that, Eddie Van Halen, Steve Rosen, Eddie Van Halen, Godhead. And when Michelle used the term Godhead, that means she was describing a superhuman being, somebody that was greater than every other guitar player in the world. And Edward kind of smiled when he heard the term, which told me that he knew Michelle, and that he knew that when Michelle used that term as well, it meant something very special. So, I mean, he didn't know me from Adam. I was just somebody Michelle introduced him to. So, I must have said, hi, I'm a writer, and, I heard that your band, just got a deal on Warner Brothers. Everybody knew about that. And he said, yeah, we got a deal on Warner's, and, I hope the record does well. I don't know, and I thought, my God, if I had a band who had just signed a deal on Warner Brothers Records, I'll tell you, I would have been like, dude, can you believe our band? We got signed, and man, we're going to kill it, He was not like that. He was never like that. We just started talking about music, He brought up, or I brought up, Eric Clapton. He loved Clapton. Obviously, I loved Clapton. Richie Blackmore came up. He loved Blackmore, though there was some friction that would go on later on. I loved Blackmore. He loved Jeff Beck. It was just one of those amazing.
But Stephen, you told me last time I had already a very nice. Actually, we had an interview already because we had a chat, and I was listening to your stories. And you told me, if I'm not mistaken now, you told me that you thought it's not so good actually the album, and then after you went back and listened again, I said, oh yeah, now I get it. Tell me about this, about the first album of Van Halen.
Right, that's correct. So we get done talking, and he runs out of the room very quickly. And then he comes back. He's got a pencil, and he picks up a piece of paper and he writes down something. I look at. It's his phone number, and he says, "Call me. I hope we meet again." Fast forward 8 months, February 28th, 1978. I'm on the mailing list for all of these labels. So each month they would send me the new releases. And I remember the releases that month from Warner Brothers included Little Feat, The Ruddles, which was like a takeoff on the Beatles, right? I think there was a Manfred Mann record in there, and Van Halen. And I'm looking through them. I go, oh, Van Halen, there's that guy up in the corner, and he's playing what I thought was a Strat. I go, oh my God, Van Halen, I got to put this on. So I put it on, and I hear those first, bum, 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 I think, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I kept listening, and it's like, I was losing interest, and I kind of did needle drops throughout the record. And I didn't think it was very special. I thought, yeah, it's okay. It sounded like, Deep Purple, those fast shuffles that they used to do, but they weren't as good as Deep Purple. And, I got done. I thought, well, that was kind of disappointing because I wanted to be blown away, man. I wanted to hear the next, Jeff Beck or Richie Blackmore or Hendrix or Pace. I wanted to be blown away, but I had very high standards. Because as I said earlier, man, I was used to hearing Jeff Beck and Page and Blackmore and Hendrix and Paul Kossoff and Robin Trower. That was my measuring bar. And if you didn't measure up there, it was hard to keep my attention. And not that you weren't a good guitar player, it's just that it just didn't register with me. So I thought, you know what? I've got to be crazy or I've got to be stupid. I'm missing something. So the next day, got myself a big cup of coffee, sat down, put it on track one again, and listened very carefully. And I thought, oh my God, that's what everybody was hearing. Listen to the guy's freaking guitar tone, and listen how he's using the vibrato bar, and listen to his intonation and the articulation and the riffs that he's playing. And he's got that swing that I love that English guitar players had, because they came from a jazz background, right? And all jazz tends to swing. American guitar players, you know, that rock thing is straight up and down. Jazz, it has like that, you know, that swing thing, which is why so many guitar players thought it was so impossible to really accurately capture Edward's technique. So I listened to it again that second day, and I was blown away. I knew instantly, as did everybody else, that this is a new story being written, you know. And so again,
he was right
forward,
there. So now the
you know,
question of all questions, because this is two camps. There is the David Lee Roth camp and the Sammy Hagar camp. I'm wondering, I mean, you are here with Sammy. I don't see a picture with David. You have even a picture with David?
I don't. So so this is the 5150 tour. This was taken by Ross Marino, who sadly passed away a while ago. But he took that amazing picture, and I had actually interviewed Sammy right before, and I never realized it, but I have like a list of interviews I've done, and a lot of them have dates on there. And I interviewed Sammy right before meeting Edward. I think this might be like earlier 77. And I remember Sammy as being a very cool guy, very nice and open. So so this is a story for Guitar World. This was a cover, the third cover I did for Guitar World. This is like, what, 85, 86? And they were amazing. I interviewed Dave one time. I never had a photo taken with Dave. And I got along with Dave. I mean, Dave was Dave. He was an incredibly bright guy. Big ego. But that's what was required in Van Halen, because Edward did not have that, right? Edward wasn't going to be the front guy in a band. He wasn't going to be a singer, though he was a pretty good singer, but he wasn't, that's just not how he was wired. So Dave was the perfect singer for that band. Dave, believed that he was a rock star way before he was ever in Van Halen. And my God, to have that kind of, self-confidence, man, that's a hard thing. That is really hard when people keep saying, no, 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 and this and that, and you say, hey, screw you, man, I'm going to be a rock star. And then he makes that happen.
He was the ultimate rock star. I mean, he had the looks, the moves. Nobody moved like him. Maybe Steven Tyler a little bit, but he was the frontman. And I love the very first album still today. But when it comes to melody, Sammy Hagar brought something to the table. Jump was amazing. Here in Germany, Jump was the mega hit, and still is a great song. But Sammy brought more range, and I must say, unfortunately, I saw a video, because before I had a different plan for this today. I had plans to play music between, and I couldn't find something and I saw Van Halen reunion 2004, I guess. I had to stop it because it wasn't Michael Anthony, which I think he fits much better to Van Halen than Wolfgang, but it's a different story. But David Lee Roth, he was not in his prime anymore, and he was here. It's like Ozzy. People says he cannot sing really, but he has an instinctive voice, and David has also is screaming. This was cool, and Sammy Hagar brought something to the table, and they sold more records than before. This is say something.
Yeah, man. You say, well, who do you like better? I mean, you're going to hear 1,000 different opinions. I didn't see that 2004 tour, but Edward was going through some things at the time, and I don't think he was feeling well.
Did you actually meet? Excuse me. Did you meet him before he passed away, like shortly before or something?
I didn't want to give the book away, but it's probably common
This
knowledge.
is the next. I mean, I put it now on screen. That is why you are here today, Tone Chaser.
There you go. There you go. So my relationship with Edward ended in 2003. I never spoke to him again, very sadly. I write about this in the book. I had emailed him several times, and I had the emails for his, I don't know if he was married then, but his manager. So I don't even, honestly, I don't know if Edward ever even saw the emails, but I remember emailing him around Christmas once or twice, and I think around his birthday, and hi, Edward, this is Steve. I wanted to say hello, and I hope you're well, man, and I miss you. I love you, you know. And then sometime around 2016, 2017, maybe, I got his phone number. I had his phone number from way back in the day, and I actually dialed that one time, and that was long out of service. But somebody gave me his current phone number, and it took me weeks, literally, to build up the courage to call him. And I finally call him, and I hear his voice, and I'm shaking, and I realized it was just his voicemail. And so again, I left a message. Hi, Edward. This is Steve, man. I miss you. Just wanted to see that you're okay. And, you know, I miss our friendship. You know, call me. And I never heard back. So no, I never spoke to him again after 2003.
Wow.
Sadly.
I could listen to you for hours. For me, this is the masterclass. This is the guy who did it, and I don't know what to say. And you have a great memory. I had no idea how this works today. What you ask a guy like Steve Rosen who saw everything? Because I'm a newcomer when it comes to interviews. And so ihr da draußen, wenn ihr mehr von Steve Rosen hören wollt und sowas, der hat so geile Interviews on YouTube. Go to the channel, YouTube channel von Steve Rosen. Der hat geile Interviews. Now you put all the interviews on tapes and put it on YouTube, right?
There are a lot of them. And, you know, for the longest time, Richie, I didn't want to put any of my stuff out there. Look, going back to I think it's 2015, I actually put out a couple snippets, I think, of a couple of Van Halen interviews. I was working with some guy at the time, and I thought, you know, I'm going to put up a couple of things. But then for years, I didn't put up anything. I just looked on those interviews as like, that's like my history, you know, and I didn't want people to hear it, and, you know, but then I thought, you know what, maybe people would be interested in hearing these interviews from Van Halen and Jimmy Page and Ronnie Dio and Jack Bruce, my heroes, you know, a lot of these guys who are gone, you know, passed away, and, you know, hey, listen to these guys from back in the day. And yeah, the response has been pretty amazing. So yes, there are quite a few interviews up there. I just put that Alex Van Halen 6-part interview up there.
4.5 hours. I was listening. Unbelievable. He was talking. It was like, wow. I was blown away.
Yeah,
but
that was
you
cool.
know what is for me also amazing when it comes to guitar. When you had your first guitar and you saw like Marshall amps. Yeah, in your wildest dreams, did you ever thought that you meet the guy, Jim Marshall or Les Paul? Let's say this iconic picture here. Did you ever thought that you meet these guys actually? I mean,
no, and it really goes back to your first question, Richie, about did I go in, you know, to these interviews later thinking, it's just a guy, or, you know, was I astounded by it? And yeah, I look at that picture, and again, this is a picture by Glenn LaFerman. You know, me and Edward, Don Landy, and Don never went out, and, you know, the iconic Les Paul. No, never in a million years. And that's why I said each time I'd go and I'd meet one of these guys, you know, maybe not in the moment I was thinking that, but afterwards I think, my God, you know, you've met these people. And, you know, you look at all these pictures, you know, virtually every wall in my little condo.
Jim Marshall.
Jim Marshall, that's in the Marshall factory, and I'm looking at all these Marshalls being made, and he's there. And we go to his house for lunch, and you know, I'm drinking tea with him, and he's serving wine. I'm thinking, this is Jim fucking freaking Marshall, you know, and I'm standing there with him. You know, no, never in a billion years. And all these pictures on my walls aren't because of an ego thing, because I honestly, man, don't have an ego, and I've always been sort of unsure of everything about myself in life. But it's just kind of, you know, I love when people come over to look at them and they go, oh my God, who's that? Or when I do these interviews and I get to relive those memories, you know, and I get to look at these things and go, yeah, you've done okay, you know. You aren't a guitar player in a successful rock and roll band, but you've met all the guitar players in successful rock and roll bands. So, you know, that's your little piece of history. So I'm thankful for every minute of it, you know. I was lucky. I worked really hard to be there, you know, and yeah.
One question when it comes for me, like a one of the unbelievable guitar player ever, and this is Jason Becker. Did you ever meet Jason Becker?
I never did meet Jason.
Man,
there was a couple that slipped through my fingers, you know. The big one that I never interviewed was Eric Clapton. He was the one I always wanted to interview. You know, I interviewed Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, the other two of that famous trio, but never Eric. So
I see so many here. We could do another hour, you know, but I think we've 1 hour and 41 minutes. I never thought we'd do so long. I thought maybe we do an hour, but It's unbelievable. I see here 38 Special, Alice Cooper, Cheap Trick, David Gilmour, Don Felder, Doc Aldrich. Man, it goes on the list here. So George Harris. Oh, we have to talk about this. This must be. Oh my God. That's the peak of the peak. Look at this picture. You have to talk about George Harrison. What's happening here?
Yeah, it's pretty great, right? So this is Warner Brothers. I think this is 74, Dark Horse, you know, his solo career. So, you know, I get an invitation from Warner's, you know, George Harrison press conference. I think, oh my God.
Was it some My Sweet Lord time?
Maybe just after that, but certainly close. So, you know, I go to the front desk. I've been to, you know, Warner's in Burbank, I mean, many times. And I go and, you know, I'm looking, you know, and he's looking, you know, I see him going down the list and, you know, he goes, oh, I'm sorry, your name's not on the list. I go, my name's on the list. He goes, he's looking again, you know, and looking again. And I'm about to jump over the fucking counter, you know, say, here's, you know, I knew my name was on the list. I mean, I was getting insane. And they go, oh, yeah, here it is. I go, yeah, there it is, you moron. I didn't say that. You know, I wanted to. So,
imagine you're interviewing with George Harrison and your name is on the list. Oh, this is a once in a lifetime.
You idiot. And yeah, so, you know, everybody's kind of looking for a place to kind of sit, you know, so I ended up kind of behind him. And yeah, man, just to be in the same room with him. And I think I asked him one question, you know, but that wasn't important. My God, just to be in the room with the guy. And you know what I found really, I don't know, man. I remember this. Look, a lot of these journalists were way more senior than I were. I mean, there were some heavy guys in there, you know, but they all tried to act so nonchalant. Oh, it's only George Harrison. And hey, George, how about tell us about that Beatles song? It just made me sick. Like they were trying to be so cool or so professional when I knew inside each and every one of them, they were feeling what I was feeling. And that was, holy God, man, you're sitting in the same room as a Beatle. You should pinch yourself. You should, you know, if they charged an entry fee, you would have paid to sit in this room with him, you know. I always remember that, man. It always bothered me. And maybe, again, that goes back to your first question, Richie. I never, ever forgot who I was sitting in a room with. Look, George Harrison is a world apart. But, you know, if I was doing with the Knack or David Lindley or Elliot Easton or, David T. Walker or Nathan East or Steve Cropper or the Eagles or, I was always in awe, and it was trying to keep that in check, and trying to walk away and try to be semi-professional, try to be engaged and bring all those elements into the interview that I talked about earlier. That's going to make for a great interview, and, 50 years later, I was still doing it. So I guess I did something right,
Yes, you did.
So thank you.
I have to deepest respect as an interviewer for me in the newer generation now. For this is my second move after I was an entertainer for 40 years. Now I'm doing this now. I hope it was okay for you. It was unbelievable. Thank you, Steve. This was a masterclass for me because you did it, and you did it with so many iconic musicians, guitar players, singers, whatever. And it was an honor for me to have you here in the show. It was another highlight for this show. Show number 743.
Really?
Today's show number 743. Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. Good for you. Good for you. Well, listen, Richie, thank you so much for those nice words. Like I said, you're a wonderful interviewer. I love the conversations. I get to relive them. Hopefully the people in your chat dug the stories. And might I just give a little plug to my book? If anybody's interested in the book, you can actually get it. I have a buddy in the Netherlands, and so you don't have to pay for the shipping from the US to Europe, which can be crazy expensive. And his name is Michel Schinkel. He's a monster Van Halen guy. And if I may, his email is vhmikey, M-I-K-E-Y.
It is in your Facebook page. Is it in your Facebook page? Yeah, is the details in your Facebook page?
I don't know. Oh, it is somewhere there.
I hope, because I add you in the promo today. So go to Steve Rosen on the link and check it out, where you can get the book. And unbelievable, like so many iconic artists have the book already and shows it. This is a real killer. I love to see this.
Yeah. I had never seen any other writers do it, and I thought, well, listen, I've been writing for 50 years. Maybe some of these guys would sort of, repay the favor. Not the favor, but show their appreciation, because I did all those interviews with them back in the day. You know what I mean? So, yes, I love those pictures. I think people dig that.
1,500 hours of interviews on tapes. Unbelievable. And the old stuff, the tapes, it's unbelievable. And the work you have now to make it onto digital and I think you relive the interviews when you hear this, right? Because I see you are so prepared. I ask you about it, boom, exactly, boom. Okay, the beard was a problem because it was different. We talk about here decades. It's not like we're talking about a couple of years. This was 50 years in the making. And from a humble guitar player to the writer for the guitar world to the interviewer for iconic guys, that is a career, my friend. I salute you, my friend. Really.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that, Richie.
Ihr da draußen, you know what we do now? Normally, for our music bands, we have always a round of beers as an appreciation beer round. Ich würde sagen, jetzt ist es soweit. Ihr da draußen, sorry, dass ich heute nicht so viel mit Deutsch gemacht habe, aber heute war es was ganz Spezielles. Das war ein Highlight. Ihr da draußen, hoch mit den Hunden. I drink coffee with you, my friend. Cheers to you.
Nice. Cheers.
Long life. Cheers.
Auf Wiedersehen.
So, I play one more time. Now comes the beer. Danny does it like this. Look at this.
Wow. Nice.
And you got a lot of guitars from because Hannes don't drink beer anymore. He drinks now milk. That is now the guitar. And Nicole sent you some. Hello, Nicole. We bring some beers. Yeah. I let you go now. Thank you for your time. It's lunch. It was lunchtime in California.
Yes,
Here
it is.
in the Philippines, it's now close to 5 o'clock. I will play 2-3 videos after this, but I play one more time the trailer I produced for you, and in German voiceover. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Steve Rosen, author of Tone Chaser. Thank you so much.
Nice.
And all the best for you.
Thanks, Richie. See you guys.
See you. Take care. Hier ist nochmal Steve Rosen, the Bio.
Steve Rosen ist ein professioneller Musikjournalist, dessen Karriere sich über 50 Jahre erstreckt. In dieser Zeit hat er weit über 1000 Artikel in großen Zeitschriften aus der ganzen Welt veröffentlicht. Rosen war Mitte der 80er Jahre 4 Jahre lang Westküstenkorrespondent des Magazins Guitar World, für das er 8 Titelgeschichten schrieb, darunter 3 Leitartikel über Edward Van Halen, die als Schlüsselartikel über den legendären Gitarristen gelten. Als Mitarbeiter des Magazins Guitar Player schrieb Rosen innerhalb von 6 Jahren stolze 16 Titelgeschichten. Als anerkannte Autorität in der eklektischen Welt des Rock wurde Rosen 7-mal beauftragt, Bücher über verschiedene hochkarätige Musiker zu schreiben, darunter Jeff Beck, Prince, Bruce Springsteen, Black Sabbath, Free Bad Company und Randy Rhoads. Die Arbeit des reisenden Troubadours hat ihn auf der Suche nach geheimnisvollen Geschichten und schwer fassbaren Sagen in ferne Gefilde geführt. Er wurde ausgewählt, um zahlreiche Bands als reisender Wortschmied zu begleiten, darunter Led Zeppelin, The Who, Deep Purple, Aerosmith, Lenny Kravitz, Alice Cooper, The Firm und Van Halen.
This is Metalheads Forever. I am Blaze Bailey, and I am telling you, this is probably the best heavy metal show in the world.
Willkommen zum Rock and Metal Dates Festival 2024. Vom 27. bis 29. Juni 2024 bebt die Motorsport-Arena in Oschersleben mit Heavy Metal vom Feinsten. Den Warm-Up machen am Donnerstag Out the Mouse and Blacksmith. Am Freitag rocken dann Deutsche Front, Hi-Res Fire, Rosen, Mysterica, Odium und weitere sensationelle Bands die Bühne. Headliner am Samstag sind Burning Witches und Nervosa. Außerdem ballern euch Grampinators, Volta, Wanted Inc., Thunder and Lightning, Rush Moon, Dispute und Morbid Approach das Hirn aus dem Schädel. Das Festival findet auf dem Zeltplatz der Arena statt. Holt euch das Ticket im Vorverkauf. Powered by Made for Kids e.V., Stage Diver Promotions und der Metalheads Forever Rockcast Show. Schädelfest, das Live-Event 2024. Von 24. bis 25. Mai 2024 findet in der Nähe von Rottweil, der ältesten Stadt Baden-Württembergs, ein nicht öffentliches privates Live-Event statt. 2 Tage vollgepackt mit Live-Musik, coolen Leuten und jeder Menge Raum für Social Networking. Über die 2 Tage hinweg werden insgesamt 6 Bands aus den Genres des Heavy Metal und des härteren Rock die Gäste verzaubern. Am Freitag spielen ab ca. 20 Uhr Anima Obscura, Serious Curse und als Headliner Crossing Sabbath. Am Samstag dann ebenfalls ab ca. 20 Uhr Arkham Circle, Dustin Bones und als Headliner Black and Damned. 100 Tickets zum Preis von 35 €. Seid Teil des Schädelfest, seid Teil der Community. And don't forget, Schädel up your head.
Hier sind wir in der Aftershow-Party. Noch ein paar Videos hinterher. Das war heute eine Premiere. Das war zum ersten Mal eine Sendung, wo es nur Musik, also nur Geplapper ging. Und zwar von einem Master. Was für eine Ehre, was für ein Wahnsinn. Man muss das mal vorstellen. Ich habe den ganzen Katalog hier zum Anschauen. Unglaublich. 1500 Stunden Interview. Die wurden, der ist auch rumgeflogen, eine Welt, also unglaublich. Also Steve Rosen, das war ein Highlight für mich heute. Ich weiß, für euch, die wo jetzt nicht Englisch sprechen, ist es hart, aber ich glaube, die Bilder haben auch, der Picture tells the story. Und unglaublich. Ja, und super sympathisch. Ja, jetzt gibt noch ein bisschen Musik, und zwar, was habe ich auf die Schnelle noch ausgesucht, und zwar von Crystal Ball, lange nicht mehr gespielt, gibt es jetzt I Am Rock. Hier sind Crystal Ball. I Am Rock, das war ein Crystal Ball. Ich kann mich wieder einladen, oder? Super coole Jungs und Steven auch ein geiler Sänger. So, und der nächste One, lange mal gespielt, muss ich feststellen. Iron Savior, are you ready to rock? Und hier sind Iron Savior.
Thunder in the night, a blaze
Oh yeah. Iron Saver, are you ready to rock? Are you ready to rock? Morgen Speed Metal aus Australien sind morgen unsere Gäste, und zwar Darker Half. Und bevor ich euch jetzt in die Nacht entlasse und mich selber in den Morgen ins Frühstück begebe, gibt es nochmal eine geile Band, und zwar die waren auch schon. Und wenn ihr über Iron Savior noch mehr hören wollt, natürlich unten in der Library habt ihr 2 Interviews. Iron Savior, der Pete Silk, der hat auch diese perfekte Stimme für den Power Metal, oder? Iron Savior, sensationell. Und die nächste Band ist auch sensationell. Auch schon bei uns da gewesen, der Sänger, und zwar Manimal. Und der Song Irresistible, das sind die Wörter, Irresistible. Also nicht vergessen, morgen 20 Uhr, Darker Half aus Australien, müsst ihr doch mal Englisch hören, aber trotzdem geiler Soundtrack, kann ich gleich sagen. Also, seid morgen dabei, ich danke fürs Zuschauen und Zuhören heute. Heute war es mal was zum Zuhören, aber dafür haben wir eine Legende hier. So, das war's gewesen. Behind the Scenes macht Feierabend. Einen Song gibt's noch und dann bin ich auch weg. Servus. Dankeschön und macht es gut. Wir sind Manimal, Irresistible, Attacke und Servus.
I am the face of the
Metalheads Forever Rockcast Show is proud to present from Australia, Darker Half. Diese Show wurde euch präsentiert von Newton Artworks. And don't forget, like, subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you for watching. We salute you.